And I even think we're going to have a UFC fight. Does anybody watch UFC, the great Dana Well? We're going to have a UFC fight. We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this, on the grounds of the White House. We have a lot of land there. We're going to build a little, we're not, Dana's going to do it. Dana's great, one of a kind. We're going to have a UFC fight, championship fight, full fight, like 20, 25,000 people. And we're going to do that as part of 250 also. We're going to have some incredible events, some professional events, some amateur events.
All right, so let me just start this off by saying that this entire situation feels like the plot of a WWE special, except it's being led by the UFC. Just this past week, Donald Trump casually announced that the presidential White House is going to host a UFC event, which sounds like something straight out of Saturday Night Live. And not only did Trump's press secretary double down on this claim, saying that they're dead serious on making this happen, but a UFC official also confirmed that they are in discussions with the White House about hosting a UFC event on site, so by all accounts it seems like this event is already in the works. Sure, it's a plot point that's ripped straight out of the movie Idiocracy, but the idea of watching UFC fights go down with the White House chilling in the background seems like the kind of chaotic fun that's right up my alley. I will say this, something that I have really not liked about this White House event announcement is the clout-chasing bums that it's brought out of the woodwork. The first of which is none other than Jon Jones. Yes, Jon Jones has officially unretired just 13 days after officially announcing his retirement.
Because it does look like you walked away and ducked Tom Aspinall. It's as simple as that. That is what most people are thinking. Yeah, there's a lot of people giving him the benefit of the doubt, but there's a lot of people thinking he avoided the first true test at heavyweight. Somebody with well-rounded skills, with knockout power, that is younger, that is bigger, that is faster, that is agile, that can wrestle and knows jiu-jitsu, that can do it all. The first time you came up against somebody like that, you walked away from the sport. That's not a good look.
Bruh, can this guy get any more desperate and pathetic? The moment that Trump spoke this event into existence, Jon practically sprinted to Instagram to say that he wants back in the game. And if you really think about it, this situation is the perfect Jon Jones PR opportunity. He's gonna wrap himself up in the American flag, pretend to be the good guy for a couple of weeks, and talk about how he's such a devout Christian and such a great father while completely ignoring the fact that he's a felony with legs. Also, do I think it's at all a coincidence that Jon Jones happens to make his return to the testing pool immediately after Tom Aspinall confirms that he has a fight lined up who's not Jon Jones? No, I do not. Jon is such an attention-seeking narcissist that the idea of other fighters getting some shine probably drove him crazy. And hey, don't get me wrong, if Jon actually stayed even remotely active the last few years, and if he didn't retire because he was ducking Aspinall, I would be all for him fighting on this card, I really would. But it's the fact that he's been tweeting about how he told the UFC months ago that he was done, and how he's been gloating about how he wants to make big money pursuing his other business ventures, and making it seem like the UFC is beneath him is what really annoys me about his unretirement. And as much as I really hope that Dana doesn't let Jon get what he wants here, I get the feeling that he's going to put him on the card. I think the idea of having Jon, an American, fight Tom Aspinall, an Englishman, for his former title at the White House is way too juicy of a narrative for him to pass up, and he's going to bend over for Jon yet again. I mean, from Dana's perspective, seeing as there's no American male champions on the roster these days, the next best thing would be to have Jon in the main event challenging for the title. To be fair to Dana though, I do agree that they kinda need to have an American fighter on the main event of a White House card, but the thought of Jon just weaseling his way back into a huge fight on a card like this just leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and it would be another embarrassment for Dana if he lets Jon get his way again. And speaking of guys who can't stop embarrassing themselves, cue the return of Conor McGregor, where surprise, surprise, he's once again calling out Michael Chandler. Again, much like Jones, the moment that Conor heard that the UFC White House event was in the works, he immediately took to social media and posted an AI photo of him and Chandler facing off in front of the White House. And then after that, he posted a photo of his DMs where it shows Dana responding "I love it" to 2 voice messages that Conor sent him. And then he posted another photo from his fight with Brandao, where in the caption he talks about how good his vision is in his right eye. He ends the caption by saying that getting to fight at the White House would be the perfect way to set up his comeback to the sport. Okay. Dude, this McGregor-Chandler stuff feels so worn out and tired. Every few months, these guys will go back and forth on Twitter. Conor will post a training montage where he spars with the guys from his gym's beginner class, and of course, Chandler will talk about Conor every chance he gets, regardless of who his upcoming opponent is. Chandler looks like he's aged 10 years waiting for this payday. Meanwhile, Conor's busy punching random dudes in Ibiza, or promoting his new record label, or campaigning to be the president of Ireland. And I think that that last part is a big reason why Conor seems so interested to be on this card. I'm not entirely sure how or why fighting at the White House would help his Irish presidential campaign, but I'm sure that in his eyes it does. I mean, he literally put "Vote McGregor" with the Irish flag at the very end of that Instagram post. He definitely wants to leverage the fight to help his political standing. Regardless, the weirdest and most unexpected person who's volunteered to fight at the White House is Andrew Tate. A day after Trump's announcement, Tate tweeted at Dana saying that he was interested in being on the card. Admittedly, is this this any crazier than Brock Lesnar or especially CM Punk fighting in the UFC? I mean, Tate did compete in kickboxing for years and has a pro record of 76-9. Compare that to Brock, who obviously was a WWE superstar, but before that, he was a dominant NCAA wrestling champion, and he even had to win one pro MMA fight before he was signed to the UFC. But then there's CM Punk, who never competed at a high level in any sport before he joined the WWE, and then he made his combat sports debut in the UFC. I can understand why they let Brock fight in the UFC after one pro fight, but after they let CM Punk make his MMA debut in the UFC with like 6 months of training, the idea of Andrew Tate fighting in the UFC doesn't seem all that insane to me. I'm not saying I agree with it, but I am saying that it wouldn't even be the most ridiculous signing that they've ever done. With all this being said, I don't like the idea of any of these guys fighting at the White House. I don't like it at all. You have fucking Jon and Conor, who both treated the UFC as an afterthought for the past few years, and now they've come out of hiding so that they can clout chase fighting on this card. If this event ends up happening, then I want to see fighters who have been actively competing and cutting their teeth against the current roster to get the opportunity to fight. But the shitty thing about this situation is that 1, the UFC is really lacking star power these days, and 2, money talks. And in a perfect world, the current roster would have enough big names in order to make a banger card that sells big numbers without needing Jones and McGregor, but unfortunately, that is just not the case. If the UFC does do a White House card, then I think that they're going to end up having to negotiate with Jon or Conor, but probably both. It's a damn shame. The UFC has been in such a star power shortage for over a decade now, to the point where they're still desperately in need of Jones and Conor to bail them out for their biggest cards, even though they've both been such a headache to work with for a while now. And from what I understand, Jones isn't even that massive of a pay-per-view draw, but of course the UFC's branded him as the GOAT, so they can at least market any card that he's on by saying that the best to ever do it is fighting on it. But when it comes to star power like what McGregor's known for, there's just no one on the roster that even comes close to what he has. But unless the UFC shamelessly gives him a title shot at lightweight or welterweight, which they would be out of their minds to do, I don't think that they can justify putting him on the main event. What I do think they can do is maybe give Conor a shot at the BMF title once we find out the winner between Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier, and then they can have him be the co-main event on the White House card. But at the same time, why would Conor be considered a BMF in 2025 when the guy hasn't fought in 4 years? Listen, I don't know how the UFC can stack this card in a way that feels exciting and novel, because frankly, they don't really have a ton of chips to work with. Who are their biggest stars right now that are still active? Ilia Topuria, Islam Makhachev, and Tom Aspinall probably? Now let's just say that those guys have to face an American opponent if they were to fight on this card. So that means Ilia would be fighting Justin Gaethje or Max Holloway. If Makhachev beats JDM, then he'd probably end up fighting Sean Brady. And unless we want to see Aspinall fight Curtis Blaydes for a 3rd time, then I hate to say it, but his only other option is fighting Jon Jones. And just for the sake of this example, let's put Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler on this card as well. And again, I really don't love the idea of having Jon or Conor on the card, but if they're not, then there's really not much they can do to make the card feel like a big experience. But I guess at the same time, you could put guys like Henry Cejudo, Colby Covington, and Sean Strickland on the card. It'll start to feel like a bit of a political rally, but I guess that's kind of the point of the event in the first place. Now let's take a step back really quickly and just process how insane this entire premise actually is. Let's talk about logistics. Would there be a live crowd at this event? And if so, who gets to attend? Political figures and billionaires? Are they gonna even charge for tickets, or would this be an invite-only sort of event? And what about security? UFC events are chaotic enough in regular arenas. Now imagine trying to hold one in the front yard of the White House. They are going to need military-level security details, snipers on rooftops, anti-drone measures, and a plan for what happens if one of the Diaz brothers jumps the fence. And yet, as dumb, ridiculous, and fundamentally laughable as this entire thing is, I can't lie to you, I kinda love it. Not in a this is a great idea kind of way, but in a this is so stupid it's almost genius kind of way. I mean, come on, UFC fighters brawling on the White House lawn, Secret Service doing glove checks, Dana White trying to live stream the weigh-ins from the Lincoln bedroom. It's the kind of thing that makes you realize that reality is truly stranger than fiction. At the end of the day, no matter how ridiculous this event might be, you can't say it isn't perfectly in line with what the UFC has become lately. It is a circus that knows it's a circus and is doubling down on being the most chaotic freak show on earth. And if they are going to lean into the spectacle, they might as well go all the way. It's idiotic, it's dystopian, it's irresponsible, but if it's just for this one time, then I say let's do it. Anyways, that is the video for today. Definitely let me know what you think about the UFC's White House card. Who would you have fighting on the main card, and do you think it's a good decision to blend politics and sport like this? As always, if you like the video, then like the video, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do so. I appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Get to see the greatest heavyweight fight of all time, if Tom only just scrapes by Cyril Gane. I think Jones would come out of retirement, and that would be the main event at the White House. Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall, England versus USA, all over again, okay? 1776, eat your goddamn hearts out, except this time, we're gonna whoop your ass, guys. Anyway, there's the main event. Let me know what you think about that one.